Let's make a start. Governance, we're recording. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday, the 16th of February 2021. The time now, by my recollection, is spot on 6 p.m. I declare the ordinary council meeting of today, the 16th of February 2021, open. I start by acknowledging the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of this land. We also pay our respects to elders, both past and present. May I ask everyone present this evening to please turn off electronic devices, mobile phones, iPads and tablets for the duration of the meeting. Tonight's council meeting is being recorded and a copy of the audio recording shall be available on the city's website within 72 hours of the meeting, and often sooner than that. The remainder of the disclaimer can be seen on the screen. Thank you, staff. As far as attendance goes, at item 2, apologies. Councillor Sweeney is unable to join us this evening. Here's an apology. Approved leave of absence. I believe there are none. Disclosures of interest. I'll refer to our CEO, Arthur Chiron. Mr. Chiron.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a declaration of interest from Councillor Panotharai in relation to item OC-001-21, Chief Executive Officer recruitment. The type of interest is impartiality. Nature of the interest, Councillor Panotharai writes, I have been a client of one of the companies listed Blades Pty Limited, shortlisted for CEO recruitment. I was recruited to a board position which I hold currently in the health support services. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. We move on to item 4, which is the announcement by...
Mr. Mayor, sorry, can I make a late declaration of impartiality?
You can. I'll ask governors to pass you a form to fill out. Can I just ask you to provide it verbally to the meeting for the sake of... Just
within respect to CC 00621, select a preferred provider of proposed lease 294 High Road, Riverton. Just as the same as October, I'm on the board of the Riverton Primary School, which has been advocating for the retention of, the school has been involved in the retention of the OSHC services.
Okay, thank you. If I'll ask you just to fill that out and we'll raise that. Governors, can you remind me to raise that at the when the matter comes up for discussion? Thank you, Councillor Kunza. Councillors, at the announcement of the presiding member, I'd like to read a statement. As Mayor of the City of Canning, I wish to publicly apologise to the Tamil Association of Western Australia, the Honourable Kate Doust MLC, Honorary Paul Papalia MLA, the Honorary Terry Healy MLA, the Honourable Bill Johnson MLA, and Dr Jagadish Krishnan for any embarrassment caused by the recent leaking to the media of an internal City of Canning email. On Monday, the 18th of January, I forwarded an email directly to the CEO and Canning councillors titled, The City of Canning's Political Impartiality. The email referenced a recent event hosted by the Tamil Association of WA in partnership with the City of Canning, and it made mention that the evening, which was held in the city's civic gardens, was attended by members of the WA Labor Party and the Labor Party candidate for the City of Riverton. I believe that our residents have an expectation that local government acts impartially and remains independent of party politics and is seen to be doing so. My email simply asks the City CEO to investigate the possibility of the City of Canning establishing a policy on that subject. As Mayor, it was deeply disappointing to learn that the January 18 email was intentionally leaked to the media and that on Monday the 8th of February it was read live on air by 6PR morning host Gareth Parker. Whilst it would appear that the leak was primarily an attempt to damage my own reputation, regrettably, negative publicity of this type also causes harm to others, and also the reputation and image of the City of Canning in the eyes of the public, local politicians and our own colleagues across the local government sector. Adverse publicity of any type reflects on all of us, and it reflects on the City of Canning as an organisation. The leaking of the email has embarrassed the Tamil Association of WA, and it unfairly portrayed WA Labor as having engaged in activities which were improper. Nothing could be further from the truth, and for that I am sorry. The Tamil Association of WA and their member organisations have made an enormous contribution to our community, and I am immensely grateful for the important role that they play in the preservation of Tamil culture and Tamil language. They are a bipartisan organisation which works closely with both sides of Parliament for the betterment of their people. In light of this week's events, yesterday I met with the President of the Tamil Association, Mr. Sazi Kumar Prabhakaran, and Vice President Rajan Vadivali to personally convey my sincere regret over the incident. I'm very grateful that they agreed to meet with me and allowed me to explain the situation. During our meeting, Dr. Prabhakaran asked me when I would be coming out publicly to put the record straight. I'm doing so tonight. I make no secret of my admiration and respect for Bill Johnson MLA, the member for Cannington, and also to Mike Nahan, the retiring MLA member for Riverton. And the leaked email was certainly not an attack on our local politicians, nor on our major parties, nor was it an attack on any of the community groups who host events at which our politicians often attend. I simply felt, and still feel, that with an election looming and a recurring cycle of elections every 4 years, it is perhaps time for the city to give some thought to a policy position which will protect the public perception of its impartiality. I have also personally apologised to both Bill Johnson and Mike Nahan for any adverse attention caused to their parties by the leaking of this internal document. Then, on Monday, February the 8th, the day of the first leak, I sent a second email to the CEO and our councillors expressing my genuine disappointment that the first email had been leaked to the media. I saw the leaking of the first email to the media as a serious breach of trust, which may constitute a breach of the Local Government Act, and I commented in the email that the leak demonstrated to me that self-interest and personal ambition are indeed a toxic mix in local government and do nothing to advance the needs of our community. Regrettably, I must say, that email was also leaked and was read live on air on 6PR the following morning. Today, unfortunately, I have learnt that tomorrow's edition of the Canning Examiner will carry a further article regarding those leaked documents. Whilst I do not know what the story will convey, it may prolong the embarrassment felt by those groups and individuals named in the leak and cause further harm to the reputation of the City of Canning and this council. On this night, our first ordinary council meeting of 2021, I call for those who are directly involved in this malicious and I believe corrupt act to put aside their self-interest and their personal and or political ambitions and to allow all of us to return our full attention to better serving our Canning community. I sincerely hope that in the interests of the community, we can soon restore trust, put aside self-interest and put this matter behind us. End of statement. And that statement was prepared by me. We move now to reports of delegates without discussion. Do any elected members wish to present a delegate report this evening to the meeting? No, we move on to item 6 then. Question time for the public. Responses to questions taken on notice from the ordinary council meeting, which was last held on the 17th of November, can be seen in tonight's agenda. Should that, just looking at the run sheet, governance, should that read December meeting? And that should be therefore the December council meeting, and they'll be seen in tonight's agenda. At item 6.2, questions from the public, I now open public question time by my watch, 8 minutes past 6 p.m. The time set aside for public question time is 15 minutes, which may be extended if necessary. For recording purposes, I would ask you please to step forward, state your name and address, and then proceed to ask your question. If an answer cannot be provided at tonight's meeting, the question will be taken on notice and an answer will be provided at the next ordinary council meeting. In accordance with policy AD02, members of the public who have registered their questions with the City's administration shall be called upon in the order in which registrations were received. Written questions will precede verbal questions. The City has received questions for tonight's meeting from, firstly, Mr. Matthew O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien, can you step to the podium if you are here? Have we received a written question in relation to that matter?
Yes.
I think we have. Can I ask Director Graham Bride to please read the question and then provide your response, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first question is a 12-bedroom, 12 VC or WC duplex is being proposed for the corner of Corinthian Road West and 5th Avenue. Local residents are concerned because they believe the massive duplex is being built as accommodation that would either be used for students, leveraging off the Ross Moyne high school zone, or other accommodation for unrelated residents, not as two-family homes. Despite numerous complaints, the City of Canning Planning Department looks set to give the development the green light, despite variations to the R codes due to the excessive wall height. Why hasn't a development of this bulk and scale gone to Council for a decision? Response to question 1. The development application at 48 Corinthian Road, Rossmoyne, is for 2 separate group dwellings. One dwelling has 5 bedrooms, with the other containing 7 bedrooms. Under the State Government's Residential Design Codes and the City's Local Planning Scheme number 42, the proposed dwellings are classified as group dwellings, which are permitted use. The dwellings largely comply with the deemed to comply provisions of the Residential Design Codes, with the exception of building height. Both dwellings provide a minor variation to building height, largely across the front facades of the 2 dwellings, equivalent to 48 centimetres and 49.5 centimetres for dwellings 1 and 2 respectively. The variation is a result of the slope in the block, which falls from the high of the eastern boundary to the street. The variation to wall height for both dwellings is to the front facade, with the rear of the dwellings the eastern boundary, well within the approved wall height allowed under the Residential Design Codes. Due to the slope of the land and the building height variation being minor and located in the front facade of the proposed dwellings, and there is no overshadowing of adjoining properties, the City is exercising its discretion to determine the development application under its delegation. It should be noted that the State Government Planning Authority, the West Australian Planning Commission, has recently adopted changes to the Residential Design Codes, which would allow wall height for 2-storey dwellings to increase from 6 metres to 7 metres. This will be effective from the 2nd of July 2021 onwards. If assessed in July, the proposed development would be completely compliant with the building heights specified in the R codes. The second question: what are the guarantees that the combined 12-bed, 12-toilet proposal is for 2 single-family dwellings, as it appears to be a residential building? If 7 bedrooms and toilets in one building is okay, why not 15? Where is the line drawn? The response to question 2. The Residential Design Codes allow for residential development to occur with bedrooms numbering greater than the typical 3 or 4 bedrooms. This is due to the possibility of larger families, i.e. 2 parents and 5 children, that may exist in the community. If a dwelling is being used temporarily for 2 or more persons, or permanently by 7 or more persons who do not comprise of a single family, then the dwelling needs to be reclassed as a residential building as per the definition of the Residential Design Codes. If a dwelling is being used as per the definition of a residential building, but does not have the correct approval for such use, then the City can use its powers under the Planning and Development Act 2005 to investigate and work with adjoining landowners to take compliance action, accordingly to ensure compliance or seek appropriate applications to be submitted to the City's Planning Department for consideration. Should it be identified that the dwelling is being used for purposes other than a single family, as described, the City, using powers under the Planning and Development Act, can investigate and take compliance action accordingly. Question 3. Can the approval of this development be postponed until the community petition on the development is finalised? Brackets, 3 weeks, in brackets. Response to question 3. Once the development application is received, the City is obligated through legislation, the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015, to progress the assessment and make a determination within statutory timeframes. The City is therefore not able to stop its assessment on this application.
Thank you, Director. I have questions that have been sent in by Mr. Steve Walker, and I can see Steve in the gallery. Please come forward, Mr. Walker. I think these have been forwarded to us previously. I might just hand those to Director Bright. I feel that might be within his remit, but Mr. Walker, I hope you'll appreciate that he may need to take those questions on notice, but I'll certainly I'll ask you for the record to read them, please.
Okay, these were questions that I did send in today. So it's Steve Walker, 22 Farnham Street, Bentley, and I must note I'm challenging the minutes as well. for December. Okay, so question 1 for February. Did City of Canning inform the regional residents that Beckenham substation was located in Railway Parade East Cannington and is Public Transit Authority land assets?
Director, are you able to provide a response?
Through Mr Mayor, look, I'll take that one on notice.
Thank you, Mr Walker. Your second question?
Okay, question 2. Are the East Cannington and Cannington residents in this area aware that the Beckenham substation provides the main source of power to the Thornley passenger rail line and is currently to be upgraded to supply more power to the Thornley to Coburn link rail extension?
Director?
Through Mr Mayor, look, I can't answer on behalf of the residents as to whether they are aware that this particular substation may be upgraded as part of the works for the Metronet Thornley Coburn link rail extension. So that's one that you should put to the Public Transport Authority.
Question 3. Has City of Canning ever had discussions with Public Transit Authority of WA and Department of Planning WA to move the rail substation to a more appropriate location further southeast on the rail corridor to allow for greater residential redevelopment opportunities for East Cannington properties walking distance to Carousel Shopping Centre?
Director Bryan?
Through Mr Mayor, look, I'll touch base with staff internally to see whether there has been any documented discussions and respond back to you, Mr Walker.
Thank you. And Mr Walker, I am aware, it was raised with me earlier today, just in relation to the fact that you're a little bit aggrieved by a sentence or two in the minutes of the December meeting. Please, with the greatest respect, I've assessed that. That is actually what happened. There's nothing salacious there. It just it was the ruling I made on that night. So what is actually written in the minutes is a reflection of my ruling on that night, and I stand by that. So please don't take any offence, but I don't intend to redact the minutes from the December meeting for that reason. Thank you. Are there any other questions from the public? Mr Aldridge, please step forward.
Afternoon, Mr Mayor, Council. Richard Aldridge, 5 Benoda Avenue in Shelley. My first question is Shane Silcox engaged in any capacity by the City of Canning?
Apologise for that. They're having problems with my recording. Go ahead, Mr Aldridge. Start again if you like.
No problem. My question is Shane Silcox engaged in any capacity by the City of Canning?
CEO.
Yes, he was.
My second question is what was Mr Silcox engaged to do?
CEO.
2 matters. One was to refine the CEO's KPIs, or Key Performance Indicator report, so that we could provide council with precise information when they're assessing both my term, remaining of my term, and any future term for CEOs. The second one was to establish some reporting framework so all that information could be captured in an efficient way as compared to previous years where it took a lot of additional work.
Thank you. And could you just tell me the term, the start and the finish of the contract or the engagement, please?
CEO.
No, I can't tell you precisely the start day and finish day, but I can get those dates to you and put them in the minutes for the next meeting.
Yes, I'll take that on notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Aldridge. If there's no further questions. Mrs Aldridge. Yep.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, Councillors, CEO and Directors and members of the public. My name is Marnie Aldridge from 5 Benoda Avenue, Shelley. My first question is, are all emails from the Mayor, CEO, Acting CEO and Councillors, which are sent to ratepayers, using the email canning.gov.au public record?
CEO, I might get you to respond to that.
Yes, they all are captured under the States Records Act, so they're all a part of the organisation's records, so they could be FOI'd or subpoenaed to court, even if those items were marked confidential in terms of the courts, yes.
Lovely, thank you. Number 2, are there any property deals marked as confidential on tonight's agenda which have been done through private treaty?
Director Kane.
Thank you, Worship. All of the agenda items that are before Council tonight will be discussed and resolved by Council, but not intended to deal specifically by anything that's what you'd consider as a non-confidential item or private treaty.
Okay, thank you. My last question, I really appreciate the Mayor having a policy on state party politics. I agree with that completely. Can I actually ask, maybe it could be considered and probably endorsed, that the Mayor and the councillors also make that happen with local elections, that everyone is completely impartial and everyone stands firm as not being involved in any elections, whether they be local, state or federal. Is that something we can also consider and put into policy?
Well, it can always be considered, but I think that would be contrary to findings at SAT that I know of. So it would be contrary to case law, I would think. Everyone has a right to act in a manner in accordance with the law. But of course we can consider anything.
Sure. But it's just using
on
those.
The public record.
Yes, that's fair enough. But I'm just like, it's fine if it's private, or personal, but
Thank
using
you.
titles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Aldridge. Does anyone else wish to ask a question before we finish public question time? Thank you. I'll now close public question time. The time is 6:22 p.m. And we'll move to item 7, which is the confirmation of minutes. These are in regards to the ordinary council meeting held on the 8th of December 2020. The officer's recommendation is on the screen, and I'll just ask for a mover and a seconder. Can I have a mover, please? Councillors, can I have a mover? Councillor Berry, thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Spencer Teo. Thank you, councillors. We'll put the matter to the vote. Oh, Councillor Barry, you go ahead.
Mr Mayor, I'm just wondering if we're doing, and I think I mentioned this the other day when I spoke to you, if we're doing the confirmation of the minutes for the OCM, we're not going to be doing the audit risk because that was just a few days after. And we have the item, part of the item, which is the annual statement, annual report and financial statement, which form part of...
So you're asking, shouldn't we be confirming the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee in tonight's
yes,
meeting?
I think the other question that I did ask you was, need council resolve to accept those minutes because they haven't actually been put up.
They will come to council, I'm sure, at some stage. I might get Director Kane to address that if he is able to. We had an Audit and Risk Committee meeting late last year. I don't think the minutes of that meeting have come yet before council to be confirmed.
Mr Mayor, I'm not aware if the minutes have come. I'm being given, there's a shake of the head going on in the background. The normal practice would be the minutes would have come to this particular meeting, that is the meeting afterwards, and any resolutions made would come to this council. That subcommittee, as I understand, has no delegation. In having no delegation, then it's open for council to make any decision it wishes in regard to the items that are on with that committee, even though the minutes of that particular committee haven't come to us. So, for instance, council can consider tonight the annual financial report and statements, even though they have yet been adopted by the Audit and Risk Committee.
Thank you, Director Kane. I might, if you don't mind, just refer to Karen Bateman, who is here, if you don't mind. Do you know whether or not the matter will be coming to the March meeting for confirmation? Karen Cornish.
So the previous minutes of the ARC meeting will go to the next ARC meeting to be confirmed by the committee. And yes, council should receive those minutes, but the actual confirmation are done by the committee.
Councillor Barry, you happy with that?
That's what it is. That's what it is.
The
It's
answer,
just that
yeah.
we've taken the annual statement out, which was one of 6 resolutions. That's all.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Councillors, we're simply at this point confirming the minutes from the ordinary council meeting held on the 8th of December 2020. The recommendation is in front of you. I'll put the matter to the vote.
The motion to confirm the OCM minutes of the 8th of December 20 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you. Similarly, we will move to the special council meetings held on the 15th of December 2020 and the 27th of January 2021. The officer's recommendation is obviously that the minutes of those council meetings be confirmed as having been circulated. The recommendation is on page 3 of the agenda and is also on the screen. Can I have a mover, councillors? Thank you. Councillor Barry, and seconded by Councillor Bain. Anything to add, Councillor Barry, before we put it to the vote? Thank you. We'll put the matter to the vote, councillors. Thank you.
The motion to confirm the minutes of the special council meetings has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you, Governance. We move to item 8, which is the receiving of petitions, presentations and deputations. At item 1, petitions, there are none. At item 2, presentations, there are also no presentations tonight. At item 3, deputations, we have a number of deputations this evening. The first deputation has been approved for Kathleen Curran of RK Health, regarding item CC 005 of 21, and that it relates to the proposed sale of lot 201 in brackets 1136 Albany Highway in Bentley. Ms Curran, would you please step forward? You have a maximum of 10 minutes in which to make your deputation. Thank you. I've got Ms Curran here, it's clearly not.
My apologies, and she is unable to make it tonight, so I'm representing on behalf of Kathleen Curran.
Can I get you to state your name
yes.
then, please, for the sake of the record?
Before I begin, honourable council members in the chambers and the senior council officials and also public in attendance. My name is Sujiva Gamagedara. I'm the CEO of RK Health Limited, where I have been working for the last 7.5 years, and I've been the CEO for the last 3 years. It is a great honor to be and a privilege to stand before you all to present RK Health to you all, and also to present our offer for the purchase of vacant land at 1136 Albany Highway within the Mason ward. I'll briefly run through the organization profile, and if we could move on to next slide, please. Is it there? All right, thank you. RK Health is a public limited liability company, GP member based, and guaranteed providing primary health and allied health services within the Southeast catchment. RK Health was established in 1993, but officially commenced services in 1999. Since 1999, RK Health has been providing services through funded programs as well as self-funded programs through Medicare billing systems. Our current premises is in Bentley, and we've been there for the last 15 odd years in our current premises. In 2012, RK Health won a tender to establish Bentley Armadale Medicare Locals from the federal government at the time. And after 3 years of funding, that funding scheme came to an end, and it was discontinued by the government in 2015. Since then, RK Health reshaped the organization to sustain our services and to continue providing services in the community. Both organizations registered as charities with charitable purpose under the ACNC. As per our constitution, assets may not be distributed to members, and assets must on winding up be transferred over to a company of the same structure and same governance. So there are only members in the organization and no private shareholders. Next slide. Sorry for that. Just please do that for me. All right. I'll go back. Yeah. So RK Health provides various services. Most importantly, we have clinical services which is run from our Belmont office. And we have 3-4 GPs working there during the daytime, and we run our after-hours service from Belmont. That's our own building and invested into the community. And that was established in 2012, which was an initiative of the Commonwealth government at the time, just to help migrants and multicultural communities in the area. So that service has been running since 2012 from our own building, and we believe that service is to the community. And we also have Maddington Specialist Center, which we acquired recently, and which is a specialist service run for the communities in this area, because we see a lot of patients have to wait in the public system to see specialists. So this specialist center is to bridge the gap of having to wait in the public system. So that's also self-funded and also run through Medicare system. We also have a close partnership with East Metro Health Service to run Armadale After Hours Clinic. And also we have been running antenatal services from the Armadale Health Service for the last 20 years. So we have 12 obstetricians working there. Headspace Armadale is another mental health service which we established through the funding scheme in 2015, which has been run for the last 5 years. And this service is for young people aged 12 to 25 years who seek early intervention in their mental health issues. So we have been working with the City of Canning community engagement offices very closely to deliver services in and around Cannington area. So in fact, 2 of our staff members are working in the City of Canning as community engagement officers currently. One important thing, recently there was a tender for Headspace Cannington, and there were about 12, 15 competitors. And fortunately, we were privileged to have offered the contract to provide Headspace Cannington, and which we will commence probably in October-November period. And the center will be based close to Carousel Mall, but we are still looking for premises at this stage. So that one will leverage our connections with the City of Canning, as well as working with the community engagement team at the City of Canning. We currently run services from Bentley office. We have about 40 staff that are working in Bentley, and also about 12 to 15 clinicians who are psychologists registered, as well as clinical psychologists. We also run primary health programs through the Commonwealth funding for Aboriginal clients with chronic conditions, and also with long-term chronic issues. There's a persistent pain management program that is also funded from WA Primary Health Alliance, which has been run for several years now. Active measures, we have funded this service because when we were defunded in 2015 by the Commonwealth government, there was a gap in service for this sort of service in Cannington. So we self-funded that service for clients in this area who have gone through cardio issues as well as stroke. So this is a rehab program which we have funded, which has been run from Cannington LeisurePlex for the last 5 years. That's to serve the communities in this area. And also we are registered on the NDS panel to provide psychological services, and also we run exercise physiology services from Bentley. All right, with our proposal for this particular property, we have identified there are some pros as well as cons with regards to the property we have selected. The main pros are actually we are planning to build a custom-built premises for our headquarters, and also to garage our fleet vehicles. The clients are very familiar with this location, and also we have been working from the Bentley Center for the last 15 to 20 years now. There's a convenience issue here for clients, and there are a lot of GP clinics around this area, and radiology and public transports available for our clients to come by bus or by their own private vehicles. The visibility is very good for us because it's on Albany Highway, which could attract more clients to our services. And this we regard as our largest investment for the last 20 years, and this decision was made with the board unanimously approved the decision to purchase this land to build our own headquarters in Bentley. We have also seen some reservations on this land there are unforeseen issues arising out of developing this land, which we're still not sure, so due diligence exercise will have to be done after the offer has been confirmed. There are several reservations due to number of encumbrances may have an effect on the configuration of the building, also concern on exit entry points from John Street to this land. John Street is very crowded currently, and traffic flow concerns are there as well for the future purpose. The size of the land, although it's 4,300, it has a reservation of easement of 400 square meters, which cannot be used, and it's for public use. And we have made this decision on the current economic climate as well. So we have seen major encumbrances on this property, 6-meter easement, which is allowing for 400 square meter public access, which we have to maintain as part of the proposal. There's an unserviced section not connected to wastewater scheme that is also a concern for this land. And the noise levels, to reduce noise levels, acoustic needs to be considered, as well as double glazing windows, and this could lead into cost implications at the time of building. And there are covenant and burdens on this land, which is created under 150 P&D. Finally, in view of this, we considered the price we are offering to be fair and reasonable, given that there are a number of existing encumbrances which could potentially incur additional rectification and establishment costs. We are hoping to work with the council to mitigate some of these risk issues, provided we have been made the offer to purchase this land. And our vision for this land, is obviously we are committed.
I'll just ask you to wind up there if you can. You've passed your 10 minutes. Thank you.
All right, okay.
If I just get you to
One more thing.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you for providing the opportunity today, and we are looking forward to hearing from the council as soon as possible on this offer. Thank you so much.
Very much appreciated. Thank you for coming along. Second deputation has been approved for Bruce Cameron of Camco Engineering regarding item CC 004 of 21, proposed sale and interim lease of portion of lot 92 in brackets 12 to 14, Coulson Way in Canning Vale. Mr. Cameron, thank you for coming along. You have up to 10 minutes to make your deputation to council.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening to the councillors and the CEO and the public that are in attendance. My name is Bruce Cameron of 22 Dunvegan Road, Applecross. I'm here to speak in support of the agenda item for the proposed sale of part of lot 92 in Coulson Way, Canning Vale. I'm a director representing the proposed purchaser, and I'm the managing director of Camco Engineering, which operates a business from the neighbouring property. And also Camco Engineering operates from several other properties in Canning Vale. I'll probably turn it off.
Just the right-hand button.
The right-hand button. Yep, we'll go back. The part of lot 92 proposed to be sold is coloured pink in this plan. It's the vacant land that lies in front of the drainage basin that has remained unutilised for many years. The owners of Camco Engineering acquired the adjacent lot 93 some years ago, and we conduct limited operations from the remnant buildings that remain from the days the property was run as a paint manufacturing facility. A redevelopment of lot 93 to suit the growing needs of Camco will be enhanced by amalgamation with the proposed part of lot 92. The operations of Camco Engineering involves the repair of large items of plant used in the resources sector and requires sites that provide good road access and space to manoeuvre trucks and to lay down the large pieces of equipment. The addition of a part of lot 92 identified to our development envelope provides an opportunity to create a very high quality facility that addresses the logistical needs of the business. I'll talk about the development we're proposing for the larger site shortly. And I take this opportunity to outline some of the benefits that we see flowing to the City of Canning as a result of this proposal. Camco Engineering is one of the largest engineering businesses in Western Australia, and we continue to grow. Our development plans will enhance the industrial precinct with the addition of another high-quality building or facility, and by supporting our ability to grow our business locally, it will allow us to continue to grow and operate within Canning Vale, and will allow us to avoid having to look for alternative places to continue growing the business. The customers of Camco are global resource companies who have staff regularly visiting our facilities, and the development we propose for Coulson Way will build on the positive exposure that the precinct already receives from the operations we conduct in the precinct. Our employment base will increase considerably. We estimate that we could employ between another 50 and 80 staff by developing the property in Coulson Way, and that has flow-on benefits to the local community in that we support many other local businesses within the precinct. The city will receive benefits in terms of cash flow from the rate income that we'll be paying, rental income that we have negotiated as part of the deal for access to the land while we wait for approvals that are required for it to be right for settlement. And we also see a benefit to the city in the release of dormant capital that could be applied to other beneficial community opportunities. Finally, part of the arrangement involves a right-of-way has to remain between Roe Highway and the piece of land that's proposed to be subdivided, and we've agreed with the city that we would develop a trafficable pathway for the length of that to allow access to the drainage basin for maintenance at the rear, and that also allows us to have a trafficable pathway for vehicles to exit the property when they've unloaded goods and the like. Our plan includes a development of a new factory workshop facility, which is on the right-hand side of the plan. We intend to retain one building that is still on the property, which we would refurbish, which is the building to the left of the original Lot 93. We'd be constructing new office and staff amenities, developing bitumen hard stand and truck access driveways, and the plan indicates the extent to which our internal traffic ways diminish the available space for us to construct buildings and to store materials and equipment from customers. And this is a consequence of the size of the equipment that we need to bring into the premises. So the proposed acquisition of the part of Lot 93 assists tremendously in the ability for us to maximise the development potential. A quick snapshot of Camco Engineering for people that aren't familiar with us. We offer key services in machining, fabrication and welding, fitting and gear cutting. We operate from large and scalable operations. We've got 21,000 square metres of workshop spaces with heavy lift capacity overhead cranes. We're 52,000 square metres of land in total, and we have currently got nearly 4,000 square metres of new facilities under construction in Canning Vale at our Bell Street premises. We have a very high quality client base. As I said, we do repair and maintenance work for BHP Billiton Rio Tinto, Fortescue Metals, Roy Hill in the mining sector, and in the oil and gas, we do maintenance services for Exxon, Mobil, Chevron and Woodside. We are a locally owned business that's been managed and operated from Canning Vale since 1995, and we have comprehensive and management and operational structures in place. Health, safety, environment and quality are very important to us, and we have integrated HSEQ management systems. We are progressing towards the ISO 45001 standard for skilled technical manufacturing processes. We are ISO 9001 accredited, and we've got a very proud record of decreasing our TRIFR index, which is the safety measure for measuring the safety record of the business. We've got 350 plus employees at the moment, and we have a very strong commitment to apprenticeship programs. We've got a reconciliation action plan, and we have a strong program for Indigenous engagement and employment, and a very stable skilled workforce. We utilise local suppliers for operations, and we utilise local suppliers for capital expansion as much as we can possibly do. This next slide is just a quick snapshot that depicts our commitment to the Canning Vale Industrial Precinct, starting in 1995 with our first property acquisition when we started the business. Each of the arrows depicts a milestone in terms of the capital investments that we've made, progressing right through until the current era where we're currently constructing our additional workshop facilities. We're just, to wind up, I would like to say we're proud of our business achievements since we commenced activities in Canning Vale in 1995. We're proud of how we develop and present our properties, and believe that each of our premises stands out in regards to landscaping and housekeeping. And I commend this proposal to the Council and look forward to your favourable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming along this evening, Mr. Cameron. I appreciate it. Thank you. The third deputation of the evening is for Anel Angus. You're looking a little bit nervous there, Elliot. Don't be. Take your time. You're doing a deputation in regards to the dog exercise area at Kent Street Weir. You have up to 10 minutes to deliver we'll give you a 1 minute warning. You have up to 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Yep. So my name's Anel Angus of 527 Bickley Road, Cannington. Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to hear what we have to say. I'm representing the users of the Kent Street Weir Dog Park. So we're aware of the development of a new Kent Street Weir Precinct plan, which proposes significant changes to the current amenities. The plan includes the relocation of the existing boat shed, the development of the pump track, and new facilities for 2 children's play areas. There will be a new amenities block, an events area, and a new events pavilion. Many of these developments make significant encroachments on the existing dog park. Plans for a revised dog area include the further subdivision of the dog park into one area for active and a second area for passive dogs. We've been unable to find definitive classifications for active and passive dogs. Using the published plans available on the Canning Council website, we've been able to estimate the new dog park sizes by superimposing them on a Google Maps display of the area. We estimate the size of the existing dog park at 18,500 square metres and the size of the combined new area at 5,445 square metres. On the afternoon of the 27th of December 2020, we pegged out the proposed new areas and undertook an experiment with 17 dogs and 25 owners. We herded them into the pegged area, and it was clear that the new area is inadequate for use. We observed the following outcomes. The dogs in a congested area are less tolerant to other dogs. There is a high likelihood of injury to not only dogs but dog owners, especially elderly dog owners. Balls could not be thrown as there were collisions with other dogs and dog owners. Balls that were thrown could not be thrown to the normal distance, which has the potential for dogs to collide into fences. Dogs that required time out on a lead did not have the space to move away from the excitement. However, remaining in the same area increases the risk of conflict. Off-lead trick and obedience training of dogs could not be facilitated due to the congestion, and the small area will lead to the deterioration of the grassed area and lead to closure for regular maintenance. As a result of these activities, some of us undertook additional research into the use of the park and began the collection of signatures to raise a petition to the council. We have collected in excess of 500 signatures from users of the park. We discovered that people regularly travel from as far as Joondalup and Rockingham to use this area. It is almost universally accepted that Kent Street Weir is the finest dog park in the Perth metropolitan area. The main reason people give for this judgment is that the park is fully fenced with only a small number of spring-loaded gates, thereby providing excellent security for the dogs. Moreover, the council workers who provide basic park maintenance are meticulous in opening and closing the machinery entrances. Often we have dog trainers in the park teaching other dog owners about good social interactions, hence why the park needs to be bigger for training purposes. We fully accept that the redevelopment of the Kent Street Weir will provide many additional benefits to different groups of users within the community. However, we do not believe that the proposed allocation of space is warranted, and we strongly urge the council to reconsider the size of the new dog park. We request that the following amenities be provided for dog owners. Ample space to exercise a large number of dogs safely, at least 10,000 square metres, including the use of the wetland area. Well-maintained lawn and seating. Ample water fountains that can be consistently cleaned out to prevent the spread of diseases and viruses for dogs. Ample shade and shelter from the elements, rubbish bins, poo bags and signs with park rules. A minimum of self-closing gates, but ideally entrances and exits with a 2-gate system so dogs can't escape from the park accidentally. Automatic lighting for the winter months where there's shorter daylight. Providing disability access and access for maintenance vehicles. Greyhounds who need ample space and opportunities for socialisation for their rehabilitation. As many ratepayers utilise this facility and will therefore be impacted by this project, we request full visibility and assurance that the money being invested is spent wisely and we receive full value for money. As such, we request that a public or citizen representative be allowed on the project committee. All quotations for works to be undertaken are made public. All payments made to contractors are tracked and all invoices are reviewed against payments, and in ensuring that all works are reviewed, making sure that what has been paid for has actually been performed and at fair market value. Finally, we would like to make the additional points that the park makes a significant contribution to friendship, camaraderie and economic value within the City of Canning, and that the City of Canning supports greyhound racing through the dog track. A large number of greyhounds become rescue dogs and require a space to learn socialisation. I have a few pictures here of the dogs utilising the area. They engage in training with their owners, socialisation with other dogs, just playing within the wetland area, and it would be a real shame to not have this area anymore for use. Thank you very much for considering our petition and proposal.
Thank you very much. The matters raised are on the public record and they will be considered by the Director. Thank you very much. Councillors, we will now close deputations. We have applications for leave at item 9, and there are no applications for leave from councillors, I believe. Questions by members of which notice has been given. There are none. Items brought forward for the convenience of those in the public gallery. I think there may be a number of people here for the OSH item, which is a little bit later in the agenda. So I may just bring forward CC 006 of 21. The title of that report is The Selection of Preferred Provider and Proposed Lease for 294 High Road, Riverton. Just to give the Director some heads up. Yes, when we get to it. Thank you. Reports of committee meetings at item 12.1, annual report. Reports of committee meetings. I've got the annual report and financial statements. I'm not sure what's going on here. I'll bring forward CC 006 of 21 right now, and I will also just raise that Councillor Kunza did provide us with a... Councillor authorised. Can I have the disclosure by Councillor Kunza so I can read it?
should be here.
Oh, can you give it to Councillor Kunza? Then I'll get him to read it. Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Kunza, I'll just get you to read it if you don't mind. We'll get there in the end.
It's my fault. Apologies for the late notice of this. My declaration of impartiality is because I'm a board member at Riverton Primary Campus, and the board chair has previously written to the CEO on behalf of the board arguing the school community's preference that OSH services remain at this facility.
Thank you, Councillor Kunza. Councillors, the matter is on page 76 of tonight's agenda and is on the screen now. Can I have a mover? Councillor Spencer Teo, you're moving the matter, and Councillor Kunza, you have seconded it. The recommendation, councillors, is on the screen, as I said. Councillor Spencer Teo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to start off thanking Director Kane, Nikki and Kylie for working on this. In speaking with the parents of Riverton Primary over the last week, they're incredibly grateful and also surprised at the level of detail and in such a short time it's taken to get here. So on behalf of the parents, I'd like to say a big thank you. I'd also like to recognise the patience and understanding of the parents of Riverton Primary School. It's been so wonderful to see so many families rallying together to support each other. We all sat here and heard the pleas and cries for help with this facility. It was nice to see so many applications for use of the facility, and again I thank staff for the level of detail put into the report. I'm incredibly pleased to see that YMCA will make full use of the building if endorsed this evening, and it will not just be used for a few hours a day. The Riverton-Willerton pre-kindy closed 2 years ago, which left a shortage of providers of pre-kindies in the area. And by awarding this lease to YMCA, it's going to enable a provider to come in who's experienced, licensed and qualified to run both services, which our community so desperately needs. What's also great to see is that the city will no longer be heavily subsidising a service that's normally run by a private company. It will relieve our ratepayers of the financial burden of maintaining and running this building whilst providing a key service to its local residents. It really is a win-win for everybody in Canning, and I really hope my fellow councillors will agree and support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kunza.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Look, I endorse the YMCA WA tenanting and being the preferred provider of OSH services for the Riverton community. It's a very important service for the local parents who have been battling for replacement since OSH services stopped last March. It's been clearly demonstrated that it's a real community need, and I'd like to start off by acknowledging the many concerned parents who have advocated over the past 12 months for something to happen to try to provide an OSH services in the community, because there are no alternatives. And so it's a credit to Council for recognising this community need and for taking action to ensure this facility remains available for OSH services. And I'd like to take that opportunity to thank staff for their work. It's been almost 12 months of no OSH services, but since the City of Canning I guess got involved in October from a formal perspective, there's been a lot of work done to get to this point in time. It's also great to have a reputable provider like YMCA standing in to provide OSH services to local community. They've got a track record of providing them across Perth, and now if this is endorsed, we'll be providing it to the Riverton Primary School community. We as a community also get better use of the facility, and it won't just be used for OSH services, as Councillor Spencer Teo pointed out. Better return for the community, given that the subsidy is removed, but also making sure that other community needs are met. But whilst I'm heavily in favour of retaining this for OSH services, I do hope Riverton Primary Campus and the Department of Education can look towards a long-term solution, potentially once this contract is finished, returning OSH services to the school ground. And that is many years in the making, but if we don't say anything now, we'll get to many years down the track and be at the same point in time. But for right now, an important community need is being met, and the wider community is attaining a better outcome through this lease. So I fully endorse it.
Thank you. Have anyone else wish to speak on the matter or speak against it? Thank you. Councillor Barry.
Not speak against it, Mr. Mayor, but I did ask some questions at the AB, and I don't think that thank you, Director Kane for answering, but I think they probably could have gone a little bit further. So the question I'll ask then once again is that being a not-for-profit and paying that level of money for rental, and as I went through the City of Canning leases, there's a number of play groups. There's a Department of Communities kindergarten, which pays a sum of $3,000 a year in rent. The question I asked then is that when their leases come up, and a number of them already are a couple of years old, will we expect those same groups to be paying a similar amount in rental value? There's quite a number of them there. A lot of them are paying $381 a year. I think the Rossmoyne one pays minimum rates, and like I said, and the Willetton Childcare pays $3,000. So are we going to charge Willetton Childcare $24,000 as well?
If you're asking me the question, I don't think you are, but through me to Director Kane. Director Kane, is what Councillor Barry said relevant in this instance to the YMCA and the process here?
Mr Mayor, no, it's not directly relevant because you need to consider this item in the context of what Council's advertised. So Council has made a decision to put a property on the market that will attract, in accordance with its policy, potentially a commercial return. YMCA is a not-for-profit entity. However, doesn't mean it doesn't make a profit. So what the YMCA and other large entities do, they generate returns, but under their charter, they put the returns back into the operation of the business. So for instance, if you said, well, what I'll do is I'll not charge YMCA anything for this, the $24,000 it saved wouldn't be put back into the community of Canning. It'd be put back into the YMCA where they'd use it in any part of the business all over Australia. So in setting up a principle up front, we've said, look, this is an entity the city owns. It could get a return back on it, like any other facility has. What return is reasonable? What does the market say is reasonable? And YMCA said, we'd like to be involved in that business, and yet we're quite happy to pay the $24,000. So the intention, I don't believe, and I can't benchmark other properties, Mr Mayor, at this particular point in time, is not to come back and say, well, we're seeking to make everything try and generate a return. But I'm aware that one of the council's stated objectives is to ensure that it diversifies its income base. In diversified income base, it must get a return on the assets it has. $24,000 is not a significant return, but it is a return.
Anything else, Councillor Barry? You're voting against it? Yep, thank you. Anyone else would like to speak either for or against it? Councillor Ponaturai.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking for it, and I'm happy to see that we had a roller coaster 1 year of not able to give the best services in our property, and this is something I was able to see that even earlier with the Communicare business model wasn't working. But happy to see that after all of that, we are finding a much more sustainable entity which want to give the service to our community. So that's very important. So that's exactly how I was debating probably 3 months ago, and I'm very much happy to see. But I still have a bit of a question lingering in my head from Councillor Barry's earlier, and I did listen to Director Kane's response. But how do we know when one entity's corporate social responsibilities, for example, Willetton Play Group we might charge $3,000, and we are charging $24,000, but who will invest back and who will not invest back? Because we do not normally dive into their financial matters. So how do we make up? Is there any other way you could make it clear, or is it the best what you have answered now?
Director Kane, are you able to answer that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, it's not, the question's a good one, but it's not actually relevant to the item that's before Council tonight. The best way to deal with that, if Council wanted to impose any policy requirements, would come back to its core policy, which is mentioned in the item, and then say we want to embed some principles into that core policy that deals with these specific circumstances. And that's something Council could consider at some stage.
Thank you, Councillor Ponaturai. Anyone else want to speak against the matter before we put it to the vote? Thank you, councillors. Councillor Ponaturo, Councillor Spencer Teo, there's no need to close. There's been, oh yes, we have had someone speak against it. Please go ahead. You did, you said you were speaking against it. You started by saying that you spoke.
Mr. Mayor, I said I wasn't speaking against it, I was asking a question.
I absolutely, categorically remember you saying I'm speaking against
Well,
it.
if I...
100%.
Okay, well, one of us will have to make an apology. Okay, thank you.
Regardless of that, that's what you said. My ruling is that you actually stood up and said, I'm voting against this matter. So I will ask Councillor Spencer Teo to close. Thank you. Councillor Spencer Teo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can just clarify both queries brought up in extension of what Director Kane said. I'm going to compare the two examples that we use. YMCA is a multinational, multi-million dollar turnover business. In WA alone, it recorded a $3.6 million turnover and a $96,000 profit. So their not-for-profit status means they don't pay tax, which is pretty much what Director Kane says. They reinvest the profits back into the community. YMCA has 29 existing OSH clubs alone, so why should our Canning ratepayers be subsidising the services of this particular one so investment can be made outside of Canning? Even more so, why should our ratepayers in Queen's Park, Canning Vale and greater suburbs be subsidising a service that's offered in Riverton? So YMCA works on a set fee structure and a model. Families who work or study eligible for the rebate of up to 50%.
I'll just, with respect, just ask you to kind of bring that back. So you're only able to rebut what was said, and I think from memory, Councillor Barry really only asked about the funding model for it and asked a question in relation to the amount of. So I just need to rebut that and then finish.
So I will compare that to the Rossmoyne Community Kindy because Councillor Barry brought that up and I know that one very well. That is, their fee structure is set by the Education Department. They cannot increase their fees based on their attendance or costs. So the state government has an arrangement with local government that local government will provide facilities to provide a community kindergarten within certain areas. So basically one is a not-for-profit, which basically runs at a loss. And then you've got someone like YMCA who does have a profit but has to invest those profits back into the community, any community. So I hope that clarifies and we can all support this to get this going.
Thank you very much, councillors. Can we put the matter to the vote? Thank you.
Motion CC-006-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you, councillors. We return now to item 12, which is 12.1, reports of committee meetings, the annual report and financial statements for 2019 and 20. The committee recommendation is on the screen. Part 1 of that council committee recommendation requires an absolute majority, councillors. The recommendation is on page 5 of tonight's agenda and it is on the screen right now. Can I have a mover for that item, please? A mover, councillors? Councillor Ponaturo, thank you. Councillor Spencer Teo as a seconder. Councillor Ponaturo, have you got anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to add at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer Teo.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the matter before we put it to the vote? Thank you, councillors. We'll put it to the vote.
Motion 12.1, the annual report, has been carried by absolute majority with all 10 voting in favour.
Thank you, councillors. And just in relation to the next matter, which is item 13.1, from the Office of the CEO. The item is OC001 of 21, Chief Executive Officer Recruitment. And Councillor Ponaturo, I thank you. I have a disclosure here from you. I'll just read that. You've disclosed that you've been a client of one of the companies, being Lester Blades Proprietary Limited, shortlisted for CEO recruitment, and I was recruited to a board position which I hold currently, being Health Support Services. Thank you. Noted. Councillors, the officer's recommendations on the screen. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Holland, you will be the mover. Thank you very much. A seconder, Councillor Ponaturai. Councillor Holland.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
Could we identify which option that the council wishes to move?
Councillor Holland. I think that's what he's proposing to do. But
exactly
Councillor
what
Holland.
I was proposing to do. I'd like to move that option A be adopted formally. So we would first have to vote on the option that we're going to adopt and then a vote to adopt the option.
Well, then be governance. Can you provide some guidance here? So in relation to, we've got the recommendation is in parts 1, 2 and 3. Councillor Holland is proposing option A, which then moves into being the recommendation. We then either adopt that or somebody amends it to, speaks against it and then moves to amend it. Is that right?
Yes, correct, Mr Mayor. As you stated, Councillor Holland is moving option A. He will speak for that motion, and if anyone wants to speak against, they may choose to foreshadow an alternate motion being a different option, and Councillor Holland's option A will go to the vote. They'll determine what happens from there.
Thank you, Councillor Holland.
Okay.
Councillor Ponaturai, Councillor Holland has nominated option A.
This is wrong.
Excuse me just for one moment.
This is not going right.
Just taking some counsel from the CEO, and thank you, governance. Councillor Ponaturai, are you happy with selection A at the moment? Okay, well then, councillors, the recommendation before us then is item is 1, 2 and 3, 3 being that council selects option A being Lester Blades to facilitate the process. Do we have anybody wish to, Councillor Holland, I'll get you to speak to that.
First of all, Mr Mayor, I'd say, yeah, I'll speak to it, but I'm not comfortable the way this has been done, to be quite honest.
Why is that?
I think you have to split 1, 2 and 3. I don't think we've got an option here at all, to be quite honest. If we go ahead and we have our twos and pros and all this, and this gets defeated, then we've defeated 1 and 2 as well.
We would have to have a foreshadowed motion, I guess, governance. So in relation to this, if
it's easier to split. It's not hard.
No, it's not hard, but I'm just wondering the operation of the logistics of it. Governance, can you give us some guidance on what Councillor Holland has just said? What's the easiest way to...
I take Councillor Holland's point. If the Mayor is happy to split the motion, he is certainly able to do so.
Okay, so we will then vote on A, B and C, is that right?
I understand it. You'll vote on parts 1 and 2 as one part, and then you're at part 3, whichever option you choose will be the second part of the motion.
Okay, I have no issue with that, Councillor Holland. I think that's probably a good idea and it might simplify it. Councillor Holland, did you want to speak to the matter?
Now, as far as speaking to the matter, speaking to 1 and 2, I think it's self-explanatory. I don't have to bore everybody to that, but I do wish to speak to 3. So how do you want to do that? Do I speak to it now, or we just vote on number 1 and 2 and then come to number 3 and get stuck into it?
I think we'll speak on option A, which is what you have nominated, and then we'll run through the vote from 1 through to 3. And if somebody proposes an alternate motion, we will do that, or wishes to amend it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to support part 3, option A, appointing Lester Blades to facilitate the process to recruit the the role of the CEO. I've read all the reports and of all the people who have submitted their applications to undertake this role. I would have to totally agree with the officer's recommendation that option A is the best one, which is Lester Blades. Looking at them, they've got quite a local content here. Looking at, I also like the way they seem to step outside the square a little bit, and we're quite looking outside the domain that might have been in place previously. And one of them, the people there that stands to mind is the City of Perth CEO and where she came from. I think their experience is excellent. They've predicated their proposal to us with a good promise of who's going to be leading this, and it's going to be at partner level. They've offered to come out here and discuss all matters with the full council. They know how that's going to run. We will be submitting questions. They've also submitted how they would recommend we do the questions, not one question each and 11 questions or 20 questions or whatever else like this. I think the proposal is very good. I found it quite cost effective. I don't think it was the cheapest, but I don't think it was the dearest either. So I would recommend Lester Blades. I hope the rest of you agree. Leave it at that for the moment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ponaturi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following Councillor Holland's some of the points, I would also like to make a note. The Lester Blades were much more clearer in presenting their case. So they presented in 2021 what they're doing, and 2020, 2019, 18. So at least we have a bit more transparent compared to others. Of course, the other recruitment consultants I've mentioned, they've recruited CEOs and DGs and all of that, which is very high profile positions. But in the Lester Blades, they've exactly identified, it makes us to do the test for them, whom they have recruited. For example, in the City of Joondalup, James Pearson, if somebody is totally outside the local government or someone. And also if you look at 18, 19, 20 especially, I would like to urge all my councillors look at it. They have a little bit of a mix of women recruitment has taken place. It's not, because of course we don't know who others have recruited, but this is very important point. I would like to make that, given that the City of Canning population is 50% female. And so that gives us a little bit of assurance where they're going, the transparency, and they're giving us an opportunity to identify the caliber of people, others whom they have recruited as well. And of course, it is up to us how we deal with them and what we want for City of Canning, going forward, and the selection criteria and the strategy and working together. So this makes it much easier for us to make a good decision and working together with them together. And I would like to urge all of you to just think outside the box and support this option. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Councillors, does anyone wish to speak against that or propose a foreshadowed motion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Barry, you're on your feet.
Yeah, I'd go for option B, but I won't speak to it at this moment. I'll just let it go to the vote first.
You're foreshadowing option B?
Yeah, which is...
Thank you. Appreciate that. We've got a fallback position. Well done. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Spencer-Teo?
I'm not speaking against it. I'd just like to ask a question, if possible.
Yes, of course. Go.
Where it says at the end, subject to negotiations of a minor nature, I noticed that Lester Blades are only offering a 6-month guarantee period. Would negotiating that guarantee period fall under a minor nature of negotiations?
CEO, are you able to provide some commentary on that? Would that be a minor negotiation?
Well, it'd probably be up to the consultant to determine if it's minor by their reckoning or whether it's minor by ours. I think there is scope for us to negotiate with Lester Blades that they increase their guarantee period to 12 months. But ultimately, the decision we're making is on the officer recommendation, which is 6 months. Lester Blades can probably stick to their guns if they want to. But having dealt with Lester Blades on many occasions and being a part of my recruitment, probably pretty much in every local government position except for New South Wales, in this one, Jeff and the main partners in the organisation are quite flexible.
Thank you, Councillor. If nobody wishes to speak against the matter, we may put it to the vote. We have a foreshadowed motion by Councillor Barry in relation to option B. So we will vote first of all on number 1. We'll do it separately. So the first vote will be 1 and 2 together. 1 and 2 together, that the council notes that the city is undertaking a competitive procurement process as requested, and 2, the council receives the assessment of the responses as contained in confidential attachment 1. Councillors will put items 1 and 2 to the vote.
Parts 1 and 2 of motion OC-001-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you, councillors. We move on to 3, which is option A. That being the case, it will be that council appoints Lester Blades to facilitate the process to recruit for the role of Chief Executive Officer as contained in confidential attachment 2, subject to contract negotiations of a minor nature. Let's put that to the vote.
Part 3 of motion OC-001-21 has been carried 9 in favour, 1 against. Councillor Barry voting against.
Okay, thank you, councillors. And Councillor Holland, thanks for your help. We got there in the end. Thank you. Councillors, we now move on to item CC002 of 21. The responsible officer is Mr Stephen Kane, the Director of Canning Corporate and Commercial. The title of the item is Monthly Financial Report December 2020 and January 2021. The officer's recommendation is on page 20 of the agenda and is on the screen. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Sabiri, thank you very much. Councillor Sabiri, and a seconder. Seconder, Councillor Spencer-Teo. Thank you, Councillor Spencer-Teo. Councillor Sabiri.
In support of officer recommendation, nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer-Teo, have you got anything to add?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak against it before we put the matter to the vote? Just a question? Yep, thank you. Just your microphone, Councillor. Thank you.
Yeah, just a question that I did have in relation last week to, I think it was Welshpool Road, Furnace Road. I think that's part of this. And thanks for the answer, but the further question to it is that given that the football centre is going to be started, I think, shortly and completed in 2023, will we be trying to tie in the resurfacing of that road so that basically we don't put down a new road that gets destroyed by construction vehicles? And would that be what, 2022, 23?
I might direct that to you, Director Bowe, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's exactly what we'll attempt to do. Councillor Barry, we aren't in the practice of undertaking work only to rip it up to accommodate the entry and access into the State Football Centre, so we'll work in with the developer there at the appropriate time. I'm not sure of the timeframes, but I'll check in with our engineering staff and feed that back to you.
Thank you, Councillor. Unless there's somebody wishing to speak against the matter, let's put it to the vote, please. Councillor Holland.
Yeah, I do actually, for the first time since I've been on council. I've got real concerns with, which was brought up at the AB, and we're going to have a workshop on this. I've spoken to the CEO about it with number 26. Item number 26, we can't use adopted budget, also has top rating spent, so on. Revenue of 4.4536, thereby generating a net operating deficit position. The budget profit on disposal of assets would help fund this. I've got real problems selling assets to fund operational costs here. I cannot, this is foreign waters for me. I'm not a forensic accountant, I'm not an auditor, so I'm happy to take advice from somebody here. They can correct me if I'm going on the wrong tangent. I don't mind being told I'm wrong, but I've got a real issue here and I don't know what to do about it, as far as I can't accept this to come in while that's in there. And I can't understand how we've got an net operating deficit position when we've been told we were going a budget surplus when we adopted the budget. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't care.
Director.
And if you say this is not the right forum, I don't care.
No, that's okay, but did you want me to refer it to Director Kane? Director Kane, are you able to provide Councillor Holland with some assurance or answer his query?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll attempt to answer the question. So the city's starting operating position is a deficit, and that deficit was carried forward from two previous deficits. The deficit in 2018-19 was 1.16 million. The deficit position for this year is 0.7 million, so you had a starting position of a deficit of 1.18 million. Now, in saying we're selling assets, the budget clearly shows that we don't generate enough income to pay all expenses. There's a line item in there that says where we're going to sell land, and we are intending to sell land. But where you end up then netting back is the position for depreciation. So depreciation's a non-cash expense. So what's typically been happening in the city for the last couple of years is because we are not raising enough money, we're not setting enough aside money to pay for the maintenance of our assets. So our assets deteriorate, the maintenance costs are not fully covered. I have, Mr Mayor, given an indicative presentation to the executive team the other day. The CEO has asked for some further questions on it. So this monthly statement simply says exactly what the position was that we adopted. We adopted a deficit budget. It's a carry forward of two previous deficit budgets. We have a position where we are spending more than we earn, and that's something we need to address.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr Mayor. Thank you for that. I understand we had a 1.18 deficit carryover, and now we've got it up to 4.536. I mean, as far as I understand, normal accounting allows for depreciation, doesn't it? Are you saying we didn't? Is that what's happened here? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, Director Kane.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm used to a system where the Mayor will then direct I can answer a question. As we just adopted the annual report too, depreciation is an item allowed for in all accounting statements. It's a requirement. Question is that you depreciate an asset, are you setting aside enough cash then to replace that asset? So depreciation is an accounting treatment. I've got an asset worth $100,000, next year it's worth 80, next year it's worth 60. When it comes to replacing that item, have you set aside the cash to replace the item? That's what sits in the budget. Now, if you don't cash back your depreciation, you don't have enough money then to replace it. And that's what we've effectively been doing. So the last few years, it says, even though we depreciate an item, we do not set enough aside to cash to replace it. And that's because when we look at that income and expenditure, the city's budget this year is based on an income of $111,000 and an expenditure of, including depreciation, of $115,000. A million, sorry. Thank you, millions. It's a small principle. So there's, as you quite rightly point out, Councillor, there's this gap of $4 million. How's the $4 million being made or being made up? Well, you could make up at one end, you could sell an asset. So when you go to the next couple of lines, you say we're buying and selling some assets, and it can make up some of that gap. But the gap is significant. It's been significant for some time. We sell land, but we're trying not to sell the land in order to pay for that operating deficit. What we have been doing is simply not putting the money aside to meet the ongoing maintenance needs. And that shows up in the cash reserves. So you see the cash reserves from our long-term financial plan continuing to diminish. We don't have the cash, so we don't put it in, and it's not there. There's nothing wrong with this financial statement at all. From an accounting perspective, it's correct. All of the other treatment of income and expenditure is correct. We've got a fundamental disconnect in our financial position, and that's the intention. I think you've asked for the presentation. It was something I'd already flagged to the CEO that we need to do. We need to come back and review the long-term financial plan because we're just not achieving it.
Thank you. Councillor Holland.
Thank you. So as far as, I got all that, believe it or not. As far as this report itself is correct. And my concerns we would answer or we deal with it at the budget preparation and the long-term financial plan. Is that the correct? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Barry?
Yeah, so the question that I would ask to follow on from what Councillor Hong says, so if we're going to sell assets to reduce the deficit and go back to surplus, the question that I asked then is, if you said this has happened over the last 3 years, I mean, the city has a strategic community plan, a business plan, and a long-term financial plan. So who wasn't following the code? I mean, why has that happened?
Is this something we can leave to? We're having a workshop on this. Sorry.
I think we should answer that right
now. Okay, let's answer it. Councillor Director Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I haven't been here for the last 3 years. I can't tell you what you've adopted in each of the budgets. In simple terms, what we had adopted as a long-term financial plan sets the parameters by which we're going forward. But over the last 3 years of that long-term financial plan, we haven't followed it. We haven't followed it. And it's not a question as simply revenue, or is it not a question as expenditure? It's both. So there have been variations in both lines, and I think when you look at the materials I present back to you, you'll see exactly. For instance, if I could say that if there's not a single line, for instance, in revenue, that suddenly, oh, this one's out or that one's out, there are a multitude of small components that made up revenue which haven't been achieved. We council have changed some services we're going to provide. So we take out from the long-term financial plan the income they were going to generate, grants, etc. That's part of this challenge, but there's something more fundamental than that.
Okay, let's. CEO, did you want to say something?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor. This is a collective responsibility. We have a long-term financial plan. I often heard during my time here that it's just purely aspirational. It is not aspirational. It is certainly, it aspires to achieve a certain amount of return or a certain amount of income and a certain amount of, development, etc., for the duration of the plan. And long-term financial plan is to be revised and improved every year that we go back to it. But ultimately, we share responsibility for what we set ourselves as an agenda, administration and elected members. There's all sorts of reasons why certain targets haven't been achieved or certain hurdles haven't been met. But this is a time to look at it. We adopted our budget this year with a deficit. That's grown. The budget process that we're going to go through, we'll look at how we're going to adjust our budget projections for the future, our rate, revenue, the various levers that we have at our disposal, which thankfully we do have the frameworks in place to pull those levers that are going to hopefully address the issue of the deficit in the budget.
And I look forward to continuing that conversation at our upcoming workshop. Thank you, CEO. Councillors, tonight we're simply receiving the monthly financial report and items 1 through to 9 in the officer's recommendation. Councillor Sabiri moved the matter. The seconder was Councillor Spencer-Teo. Councillor Holland, you did actually ask a question. I'm not certain that you actually spoke against it in the end. Okay, we haven't had anybody speak against it. There's no need for a rebuttal. Unless we do have someone speak against it, we'll put the matter to the vote. Governance will put the matter to the vote.
Motion CC-002-21 has been carried unanimously with 10 in favour.
Thank you, Governance. At item 3.3, the responsible officer is Mr Graham Bright, the Director of Canning Development. The item is SD 001 of 21. The title of that item is Adoption of Scheme Amendment Number 1 to Local Planning Scheme Number 42. The officer's recommendation appears on page 86 of tonight's agenda and is also up on the screen right now. Well, a substantial part of it is up on the screen right now. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bain. Councillor Barry is the seconder. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support the officer's recommendation, noting that the proposed changes are consistent with orderly planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barry, have you got anything to add?
Nothing to do, thanks.
Anyone wish to speak against it before we put the matter to the vote? Thank you. We'll put the matter to the vote, councillors.
Councillor Holland, could I have your vote, please? Motion SD-001-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you, Governors. We move on to SD-002 of 21. The title of this report is the initiation of scheme amendment number 2 to local planning scheme number 42. I'll need a mover and a seconder for that. The recommendation is on page 93. Councillor Holland is the mover. Seconder, Councillor Barry. Thank you. Councillor Holland.
No, I have nothing further to add. Mr.
Nothing to add,
Mayor,
Councillor
thank
Barry?
you.
Similar, thank you.
Thank you. Unless anyone has anything to say, we'll put the matter to the vote. Governors, we'll put the matter to the vote.
Motion SD-002-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you, councillors. We move to report SD-003 of 21, the title of the report being Inclusion of New Road Names on the City of Canning Register of Names Reserved for Roads. The recommendation is on page 99 of the agenda and is also on the screen. Councillor Kunza is our mover and Deputy Mayor Jesse Jacobs is our seconder. Councillor Kunza.
Mr Mayor, I support the Officer recommendation. I'd like to just comment briefly on number 2 regarding the access road to Ferndale Park. I must say I'm glad to finally see a resolution to this. I looked back and first raised this on behalf of the club in July 2017, and it can remarkable how slow the wheel can move, especially when Landgate is involved. But this is actually quite a serious issue. The club raised the matter because they've had a number of incidents where emergency vehicles have not been able to access the oval. And I understand you, Mr Mayor, actually at a game once in a previous life where unfortunately there was a real serious accident and the ambulance didn't access the oval in time. Providing a name to this will make sure that when vehicles look, especially because the bollards on the northern access, that they'll know where to access Ferndale Reserve, especially when emergency vehicles are cold. And it might seem like quite an innocuous thing here naming that road, but it will actually have a big impact on a broader scale. So I fully endorse this, and I hope my fellow councillors do too.
Deputy Mayor Jacobs.
Thank you. I have nothing further to add, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anyone got anything further to add before we put it to the vote? Thank you, councillors. We'll put the matter to the vote.
Motion SD-003-21 has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you. We move to item 13.4. Mr Warren Bowe, Director, Canning Environment. There are no reports at the moment there. Likewise, Director Sarah McQuaid, Director, Canning Community. No reports there. Motions of which previous notice have been given. We have a notice of motion has been received from Councillor Ponaturai, and she was good enough to distribute that to us all some time ago. The recommendation is on page 124 of the agenda. It's notice of motion 010 of 20. The title of the report is Live Streaming of City of Canning Council and Committee Meetings. The mover is, of course, Councillor Ponaturai. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Holland, thank you. Councillor Ponaturai.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and the councillors. I think we are well into 21st century. We've very much been enjoying the Zoom meeting part of the COVID-19, all of that. I think it's just high time. City of Canning is one of the third largest metropolitan council moving into the live webcast, live streaming. So there's a growing expectation in the community. There's need more transparency in decision making and more participation by any elected members, regardless of which levels of government. So in ethics and governance, accountability is answerability. And the expectation of account giving, that's something is very important. Because we are elected by the people of Canning, so we are serving for them. So only last year we showed this action by publishing that we wanted to show the accountability and transparency. That was brought by one of our councillors, also the Deputy Mayor, the item that our expenditures should be published in the our website, and I think most of the council, we adopted that. So on those notes, I would like to say reaching a larger audience and improving engagement is very important for us. By live streaming, it opens the door to a far larger audience than you could otherwise expect to reach. We probably have in the public gallery very few members, and we thank for them to coming in person. But if I am a mother and cooking at home, I can still be watching and getting on with work, but I can still get on to the item which I'm interested in. So, and these benefits don't end when the live stream does, but live stream can also be archived and reviewed again and again, creating a selection of content that may someday be useful to either the constituent or for any of us. And we all value the real-time data and decision making, and most of us have been in either the boards or in a leadership positions, and we understand why the real-time data is important in decision making. And I highly value that, and this is quite similar to that. And already this is good for the council and to our constituent. I point out that number of councils are already on live streaming, such as City of Coburn, Geraldton, Kalgoorlie, Vincent, Kalamunda. And this afternoon, I actually had the privilege of watching, I had an opportunity to watch the City of Brisbane live streaming, and it is beautiful. I actually learned quite a lot of stuff, what's happening in Brisbane, and some of the interests of the councillors. It's my belief that will take the council meetings easy for ratepayers to view, will make them involved in the council. Increased involvement will be increased participation. So you will all be aware that in the City of Canning, only 52,000 people are eligible to vote out of approximately 94,000 population. But in the last election, we only had 33.2% people actually took place in voting. So the population, there's a big population eligible to vote, but the average voting is currently very low. If you can get them more interest in our council affairs, the percentage of voting also will increase. Not just the percentage will increase, our community will be more involved and they want to stay engaged. Also for women to run in a local government elections also might be interested. Only reason I'm just saying many times they look at it and think, oh, this must be, the men can't do it because we need to get back home and get on with our work and doing the household matters. But hopefully this, we will able to turn that around in a better way. And I would like to see whether we can attract youth to engage by live streaming. Definitely, for example, if there's an item agenda for youth or a footy club or basketball club or anything, and they will be interested in watching that, and vice versa, we will learn things from them. So on many of the notes, also developing a better reputation and further our branding. So streaming the council and committee meetings are an excellent opportunity for an organization to show its audience that it stands for and what its mission statement is for. So by webcasting the meetings, it can give our customers, our constituent, insight into our community, what the business we operate, and they will start to value that. So from that point of view, the council, the fact that people are watching our actions, it'll keep us also in our best behaviors and increase our improved council image in the eyes of the ratepayers. If we are open and transparent in this way, it'll give people an impression that the council is a very important organization. This also serves to make the council more memorable and trustworthy. So from my experience, the more you can encourage our community to participate, and it'll have an interest automatically. And also one of the reasons, it'll reduce our costs. Very often we have done surveys and we found the community they were not engaged with us. But by doing this live streaming, they will definitely be engaged and they will tend to be communicating back with us better. So on the whole, this is will reduce the cost and acclimatize our community to engage via electronic method of communication. So I hope in the 21st century, this is it's high time, and we're only asking the CEO to come back with a cost, and it is even the estimation is given to us, it is not a large amount, given that recently off the floor we approved $40,000 for a grant or something, and this is very important and it's very vital, and I think it'll definitely increase the participation of our community, and it'll hold us also good accountability. And on the note, I encourage all of you to going live streaming. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was excellent. Can't add a lot to that. I'm in favour of this. I think it's just a now expansion of their recording that we've got. It does allow certain instances where people can watch it and you think, oh, well, they're not going to be all sitting home watching this or looking at that. Well, some people might. And it does open it up to the general public a lot more than what we can now. Now, people might not get out of their cars, especially on a winter, out of their homes on a winter's night and come in here. Or the other 600 people that were on that dog petition that was deputation that the lady brought in before, they might all be interested in what was occurring here, but they won't all come along. So this does open it up a lot. It also opens up a lot to people, organisations like Scouts. Now, Scouts, we've had Scouts in here quite a lot. We've had them recommended by the chair because it's part of their badges. One of their badges is, I can't remember the exact wording, but I know with the Willerton Scouts, the people there ask me to come in and they come in and it's part of it. So any way that we can engage community, even if it's a small percentage, I think it's a good thing. This here is just asking for a report initially to come back to council in May, I think, is it? And then we'll go from there. I think it's a no-brainer, in my opinion. It's just an expansion on recording and it makes it a bit more accountable. And I'll leave it at that. I won't go on. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
I think the Scouts might definitely use it because from my recollection, the last time they were here, there was a hell of a ruckus in the gallery and someone was actually thrown out on that night. I don't think we'll ever see them back again. Can I just say, Councillor Ponaturo, I support the motion, but I'd like to propose a minor amendment. If you don't mind, and I would rule that would be a minor amendment. I might just propose it. It would be just to take the final few words out of your recommendation, and that only from the point of view that where it says with a view to introducing the system by July or August 2021, I feel that that's a little bit presumptive. It presumes that council will probably adopt this. I think we should first of all wait for the report to come back and then be guided by the officer's report. So I will just ask for a second for that, unless you're happy to accept that as a minor amendment. No, it's up to you.
Okay, it's just, I just wanted to have something to be happening for the new financial year for us to see that happening. So by taking that, when do you think?
As not to me, will be guided by the city's officers, but I'm not going to debate it now. If you're not happy to accept it, that's okay. I'll propose the amendment and we'll put it to the vote. I'll speak to it. No, that being the case, councillors, I'd like to ask for a second. Then I propose simply to remove the last few words. Those being with a view to introducing this system by July or August 2021. The amendment is simply to keep the recommendation almost in its entirety and just remove those last final words. A seconder, thank you, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I'll just speak on that. I will be supporting Councillor Yasso Ponaturai's motion tonight because it only asks for the CEO to explore whether or not we should have live streaming. That will be subject to a report which will come back to council. And as Councillor Ponaturai has correctly done, she's nominated a date being by May 2021, and I expect that she's been working with the executives and they've told her that that date is achievable. But I just am of the view then to then include with a view to introducing the system by July or August 2021 as presumptive. And as we all know, our role is not to engage in the operations of the city. So our decision is whether or not we should have live streaming. The decision on how and when to implement it, I feel we should leave that to the city. We will talk about it obviously during our budget process, but I just think it's overly presumptive to put in there that the system, a view to introducing the system by July or August, because it almost makes the assumption that it will be something that council will adopt, and therefore we're already putting in place a provisional date on which it will be introduced. And I think we just should do one thing at a time, which is to ask for the officer's report to come back. If that is supported then by council, I think the next thing would be that the report would, I would feel, indicate when that may be able to be implemented. And that's all I've got to say on the matter. Deputy Mayor.
We'll just amend that. It says Mayor Hall and Deputy Mayor Hall. Yeah.
I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, just wanted to say I support your suggestion. I've looked at it. I think while the motivation is good, I think we need to work through it. We're going to get this right. There's going to be a technical component. There's going to be a legal/insurance component. There's going to be a cost. And I think it's the future. Don't get me wrong, and especially with things like COVID, everything the economy seems to be going more on the networks. So it seems to be a matter of time. But I just would really like us to take it one step at a time and get it right. And everyone in the city and outside the city will enjoy a fantastic system. But we just need to look at it first and let the process run. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the amendment? Councillor Saberi.
Just have a question. As you mentioned, Councillor Ponathurai probably liaised with the officers in regards to the date of May. I was wondering if the whole motion was sort of agreed on, I guess, the second bit where the July or August 2021 was also liaised with the officers.
Can I ask the officer involved? Sorry, who was the director? CEO? CEO?
Sorry, Councillor, I didn't hear your question.
It was mentioned earlier that with the motion, the date of May for the report to come back to Council was liaised with yourself. I was wondering if the second date of July or August was also decided.
No, what I understand, I recollected happened is that Councillor Ponathurai actually had suggested a date for the system to be implemented, and through discussions with her, mainly through emails, it was agreed that there would be a report back by the May date. But what was contained in Councillor Ponathrai's original notice of motion was an actual establishment date, and that was varied from a specific date in the new financial year to be July or August in the new year. So that's my recollection of it. It certainly May is an achievable date in terms of preparing a report and bringing it back to you. If the intent of this council is to have it introduced by a particular date, on the date of the report in May, there could be a date that's actually set for establishing it, because that's when you'll be voting to accept the officer report, and then you can vote to set it up by a particular date or in a particular period. It was deliberately set as 2 months because it was difficult to say when you could start the system up precisely.
Thank you. You can't. Oh, yes, you can speak, Councillor Ponathurai, on the amendment. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As per my discussions with email communication with the CEO, I did want it 1st of July this to be implemented, and he did mention to me that that could be a little bit impossible. So then he asked me whether we could move that to July, August. So that's when I agreed on a set date by July, August. As we earlier even heard, some of the things we didn't achieve, even financial matters was brought up because we didn't set the targets, whether we as a council together we didn't achieve, which I totally agree that some of the. So when we don't have a set dates in our lives or in any business, we do not achieve and we don't implement successfully. It doesn't work well. It doesn't matter if it's KPI or implementing a new project. We must have a set plan. Only then we can work towards that. So I would like to encourage all the councillors that this is one of the reasons we need to be accountable for things. Yes, I heard earlier and I was fairly a little bit sad to hear that Councillor Holland's question, which is a good question, that we were in a deficit budget. He has a question, and Director Ken answered very well on that, saying that we didn't achieve some of the targets. To achieve the targets, we all need some KPIs or dates and the specification. So that's why I say the specification is very important. If I don't have a plan July, August, we could be working till October, November, and then it could be even next year. So we don't have a time. And this is definitely possible because I've also done some homework and it's very well, it's done. See, the audio recording is done and it's a matter of setting the cameras and going through that. And since all the other councillors are done, I'm sure we can shop around and find out from them too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Barry and then Councillor Kunza.
Yes, Thanks, Mr Mayor. No, I applaud Councillor Ponaturi for the notice of motion. I think I agree with it. I think in different words, I think it should... Excuse me? I think it...
Hang on. I have to say, I agree with what you've just done, but you and Councillor Holland speak all the way through and I've never pulled you up once. So I think maybe a lesson to be learnt for all of us.
Well, okay. Like I said, as I see it, I think what Councillor Ponaturi is putting forward, I mean, when she says it's with a view to introducing it in, is it July, August? Now, the fact of the matter is that we're talking about having this come back to council by May. Now, as I read it, most of the pros and cons for and against what Councillor Ponaturi has put forward as a notice of motion have been already somewhat answered in this. And 22 says, on the basis that elected members are prepared to accept the potential risk and negative issues associated with live streaming and approve the necessary funding, the city supports. So the city, in essence, is already supporting what we're talking about here. And the fact of the matter is that I think it's a little bit, for me, it's a little bit trivial, because it will be predicated upon the fact of the vote in total at the end of this, as to we will be able to see which way council wants to go. Come back in May. It's coming back in May is essentially for costing, as I read it, and which one we want. So I think it really should stay in, and like she said, it's with a view, and from there on in we can go. So it's predicated upon the vote in the end anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kunze?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Look, I speak in favour of the amendment from the interpretation that you're not against the date being July or August, but I guess the predisposed view that we're going to be endorsing it when we're actually requesting a report to explore the notion of it. So I don't get the point of actually asking for a report to explore the possibility and also in that same sentence saying that we're going to be doing it. With respect to targets, the target is the May Ordinary Council meeting, and then I imagine there would be a motion to proceed or not proceed with with live streaming. So, I mean, just from a procedural point of view, I don't understand why we would include that, why we would have, yeah, I've said what I said, why we would ask for a report exploring a notion and then actually basically say we're doing it in the last bit of the sentence. I agree with your amendment. I don't think that removing it means that we're removing any targets. The target is May, and then a subsequent target, if it was to be proceeded with, would be as part of that May report.
Thank you. Anyone else before we put it to the vote? Councillor Spencer-Teo?
Mr Mayor, I'm going to speak against the amendment because I'm also going to be speaking against the motion. To be honest, we've just discussed this budget deficit. The $40,000 that was raised earlier, that went to community groups that supported hundreds of people within our community. This is, $25,000 to $30,000, $35,000 to offer a one-way non-interactive service for 20 or 30 people. I mean, that amount of money can put a shade cloth over a playground. And in saying the community wants this, I'm out in the community all the time. They're constantly questioning our decisions. I can't even get them to listen to the audio. I don't know how we're going to get them to watch the video, to be quite honest. If this is something that people want, I'd much rather see a survey on it because I'm not hearing this. Like I said, I can't get people to listen to the audio to justify our decisions. So, yeah, I'm not going to support it. Sorry.
We're only talking about the amendment at this stage, councillors. Anyone wish to speak against or for the amendment before I close and we'll put it to the vote? Thanks. I'll just close this quickly, only to say that, look, I take Councillor Ponaturai's, comments in relation to putting a date to this and that it's a set date. I guess we were always taught as councillors that we should have clarity with these notices of motion. We do have that with the May 2021 Ordinary Council meeting. We've been provided with a defined date, but by July or August or that's not a defined date. That's simply not a defined date. It's not a set date. And quite frankly, councillors, I'm happy to say that we're celebrating 150 years of local government here in Canning this year. We've never had live streaming in the 150 years we've been sitting here. If it takes us a couple more months to get this right, well, I'm prepared to wait. I don't think it's such a screaming I don't think it's such an important event that we really need to rush it through, and I don't think putting a date of July or August in there is really necessary. Whether or not Councillor Ponaturai had spoken to the executive in relation to this, and I'm certain that she has, and regardless of whether they have supported aspects of this in their report, it still to me is completely presumptive and just really is has no place in this motion, which I've already said I actually support, because we're simply asking for the CEO to explore. The amendment is just taking out a small phrase, I think it's 8 or 9 words in there, which are presumptive and make the presumption that council will support this. I think we should be waiting until the report comes back to council, and notwithstanding either that regardless of all of this, the budget will still have to be passed by council. That will actually also include a line entry for this. So there's a number of parts that need to be ticked off by council. I don't think we just need to roll it all into one big messy ball tonight. So I'm just saying, let's just make this really clean. Let's wait for the CEO and the executive to come back with a report to council. Let's read that report. Let's support it. Let's look at the budget impacts. And then we will look at how and when do we implement it. And I'm sure that the report will actually speak to that. So that's it. Without any further ado, let's just put this to the vote. And all we're doing is voting on the amendment. Councillors, let's put it to the vote.
Amendment to NOM-001-21 has been lost. 4 in favour, 6 against. Those voting against are Councillors Bain, Barry, Ponathurai, Porter, Sabiri and Spencer-Teo.
Thank you, councillors. We go back to the original notice of motion then, which is as is. Councillor Ponaturai has spoken on it, as has Councillor Holland. Not certain that there needs to be any further debate on it, but Councillor Kunza has his hand up. Councillor Kunza.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm speaking against the notice of motion. Basically, it's nothing to do with being opposed to improving transparency. In fact, I was part of a council that unanimously decided to improve transparency back in 2017 by making our council meetings online within 72 hours, I believe is the number. Now, we don't need a report. A report was provided to council in September 2017. I understand half the councillors here were not part of that council, but the officer referred to that report within the officer comment. I am very cognizant, and I've been in this job now for 5 years, and I'm getting more and more cognizant of the workload of administration. There's been a number of things that I would like to have seen happen sooner, and it was touched on before regarding hitting targets, and I don't see why we would seek another report when we have a report already within the agenda that can be referred to for making a decision on this. I don't really see what would have changed from that September 2017 report going forward. But then just to look at that report, it made a number of pros and cons and we ultimately decided to put the audio recording after and not make it live due to the costs, but also the potential legal matters. It's not just the upfront capital costs, it's the ongoing costs of maintaining such a initiative. And then there's also, I guess, looking back at how successful that's been. So, I mean, Councillor Spencer-Teo referenced how many people are trying to get someone to watch our council meetings to actually see how it goes. Anyone want to take a guess how many people have looked at our special council meeting we just had last month, where we made 2 massive decisions on the State Football Centre and the Metronet? a total of 4 views. That's how many people are very interested in actually watching this. So in a situation where our operating deficit is increasing, I don't know why we would seek to be expending money on something that it's not just about the money, it's the potential cons in regard to the legal matters of putting audio and visual streaming online. I'm very much a big supporter of increasing transparency. That's why we endorsed as a council unanimously in September 2017 to put our audio recordings online. But I actually just don't think the benefits outweigh the cons in terms of proceeding down this route.
Thank you, Councillor Kunza. Anyone else? Councillor Porter.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I speak in support of this motion, but my one note would be that we look at the cheaper versions like streaming on Facebook or something, rather than trying to gold plate it, like we seem to do with a few items. A good example is the rhyme time that we had going during the COVID lockdowns. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, I'll just say that, look, I have said, and I will support this tonight, only because there will be a report coming back to Council. I do have some grave concerns in relation to the live streaming of these meetings. I'm really interested to read the report to see how that will actually work. At times we've had enormously emotional outbursts from the public gallery in this place. We had recently a matter, the Osh matter, that came here tonight for deliberation. When that was raised, we had parents here, and one gentleman in particular actually broke down in tears on the night. They were so emotional about it. I would hate to think that people may be inadvertently or unwittingly humiliated by their inadvertent actions on a night. We've had other people who have attended here and their emotions have got away from them, and they've actually been escorted or forced out of the premises by armed guards, or not armed guards, but by our own security. Now, I'm not certain that, sorry, Councillor Ponnatura, I wish you weren't laughing while I said that, because I'm trying to be serious. But I don't think that those are the sorts of things that I would really like to be live streaming of our own residents, being caught up in matters like that. So, but if we're not going to actually capture that in our live streaming, what then is the point of it? What is the point at all of videotaping it if we're not going to actually videotape the whole room? And then when we do have the scouts attend and we have a room full of children, how do we address that? So I'm just wondering how this will work. I haven't seen it, quite frankly. So I will support this tonight, Councillor Ponnatura, because I'm looking forward to the report coming back. But I have some really grave concerns about how this will work, and I share the sentiment of Councillor Kunza. I know this is a really sexy thing to introduce, but there is almost no call for it. I just don't think that we are going to be seeing a return on our investment for the outlay provided, and I think that is borne out by the very few councils in WA who live stream. I'd be interested to see how many hits they are getting, and I'm sure that perhaps by the time that report is actually provided to us, we might get some indication. And I'm hopefully we're all overwhelmed by the amount of people that are actually tuning in. But if it's only a handful, we need to have the courage then to kind of revisit this and look at whether or not we really do need to be introducing it. And that's all I've got to say. Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to make some comments. I will be supporting it because I want to see the report, and I'll reserve my decision. I think there's a few things that we're going to have to be very cognizant of as legal. And I know that it's going to be a two-edged sword, because it could, it's going to have to be managed. I don't know how it's going to be managed, but I'll have a look at the report. I'll deserve my decision. I would think that something like a Super Bowl 30-second delay or something like that would probably be workable, in the sense that you've got that buffer to sort of, if something goes wrong, to you're 30 seconds ahead, something like that. But look, I don't want to prejudge the report. I think the intent is honourable. I think we're trying to get more people involved and listen to their council. But I also get the points of some of the other councillors that probably for value for cost. So it's a balancing. I'll have a look at the report. Also hear Councillor Porter's comments that we could probably do it in a cost-effective manner. But Mr. Mayor, I'll agree with you there. I'll look at the report and I'll reserve my judgment when I see the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Saberi.
I'm supporting the notice of motion. I know we're saying that a lot of people are not listening to the recorded meetings, but I've watched Parliament at times when I've been passionate about a subject, but I don't remember actually going in and going into state Parliament and watching the debate. But I have tuned online a few times to watch the debate, and yeah, I don't think I would actually ever go in, because it would be a long, a drive to Parliament, or I would be at work, or I wouldn't have the option. But I've had the option to live stream when the debate that I was interested in was happening. But I also think that by live streaming, we'll see increased focus on professionalism and professional behaviour. And who knows, it might enhance the way the councillors talk to each other and to the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I might ask Councillor Ponaturai just to close, if you'd like to. Go ahead.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, just on the point of Councillor Spencer-Teo, what that I was trying to make is we did approve for something $40,000 without any paperwork. That's what I was trying to say, which the paperworks were not put in front of us, something we did off the floor. So this is something actually the paperwork, the calculation will be done. So that's the difference. Of course, we spend $150 million budget. So we spend number of items and we don't get everything in a good return of investment. So I just thought I'll just maybe clear that point of view. And also Councillor Kunza mentioned about the audio or the legal matters. The audio recording, what we speak is actually recorded. Only thing is in the camera, we are going to look a little bit different. People can see us, but we cannot say that it's going to be defamation, a legal process later on. No, because what we say in the audio recording, if that's not edited, it is there, live raw data, it is there, what we have spoken. So whatever we speak into this mic, we need to prepare for the meeting and coming together. So we cannot just say some random rubbish words into this. So it is something we're well prepared and we are speaking professionally. So that should be already taken care by the council. And I would like to say, yes, people don't listen to audio recordings. Even probably, I wouldn't have listened to audio recordings even before I became a councillor or something, because it is boring. But how many of us have been watching, wanting to watch 11:30 in the morning, the ABC media on the Facebook? Tell me how many thousands have watched in the COVID planning is happening. What is the Premier's advice today? What is the Health Minister saying? Or what is happening? Because that's real-time data. But how many of us actually have gone back after 1 hour, looked at it, what did Premier say? No. Because we watched it, we wanted to watch. I'm not just saying Premier, any information for that matter. If some preview of a movie is happening or some stars in the town, we all wanted to watch the live, because that is an excitement, not just going back and rewinding and watching at all. I'm also in the arts industry as well as a performer too, and I know that very well. That is why real-time live, when it's going, people will watch. People not will go and watch. It's like watching a movie. So this is something I would like to make it a point to see, that people like to see something live and they will be watching that. And yes, we should become very transparent and we should make ourselves very accountable to this wonderful community. And Councillor Saberi said, yes, we often don't go to Parliament or any of the shareholders meetings, but I love to watch that, what is happening in the shareholders meeting, especially in the COVID-19 time. I was watching quite a number of them too. And because it's a point of where we can learn things, it's a platform to learn. So obviously, considering all of that, and the professional speaking is Volga actually gives us training, and we have an allowance to go and get professional training or to speak at the training. So we should all take that opportunity and speak and represent this our wonderful Canning community who have elected us in a very professional manner. And I would like to see we leave a good legacy, that who want to come and be here and representing the Canning, that continuity should be there. So that is very important for me. So on that note, leaving the legacy and going forward and live streaming. And I would like to encourage you all to vote, and you will definitely enjoy it. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's put the matter to the vote, councillors.
Substantive motion nom-001-21 has been carried. 8 in favour, 2 against. Those councillors voting against, Councillors Kunza and Spencer-Teo.
Thank you, councillors. We move on to urgent business at item 15. There is none. We'll move on to item 16, confidential matters. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank members of the public for their attendance and would ask that they now please leave the function room in order for the confidential reports to be discussed. Can I have a mover and a second to resolve to deal with items CC 00321, 004 of 21 and 005 of 21 behind closed doors? A mover, please. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Holland. Deputy Mayor, have you got anything to add?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let's put the matter to the vote, councillors.
The motion to go behind closed doors has been carried unanimously, 10 in favour.
Thank you. I'll just wait for governance to sort the doors out and then we'll get straight into it. And the meeting has now been reopened to the public. I'm now going to read through those decisions of council that we covered off during confidential cover. The first decision was in relation to CC 003 of 21, the proposed purchase of lot 6 in brackets 168 Railway Parade in Queen's Park. The officer's recommendation had been the council, in accordance with section 6.8 and 620 of the Local Government Act 1995, authorises the CEO to give local public notice of the proposed amendment to the 2020-21 budget and proposed borrowings of $615,000 for the purpose of acquiring lot 6 in brackets 168 Railway Parade in Queen's Park, and 2, subject to there being no objections received during the local public notice period, authorises the CEO to undertake all necessary actions and sign all documentation to complete the purchase of lot 6 168 Railway Parade, Queen's Park. Should objections be received during the local public notice period, the matter shall be referred back to the next available ordinary council meeting. The matter was not passed by council. The vote was deadlocked at 5-all. I then cast my deadlock vote and supported the officer's recommendation, which made the final count 6-5. But irrespective of that, the matter failed as an absolute majority was required for that item and was therefore not achieved. Item CC 004 of 21, proposed sale and interim lease of portion lot 92 in brackets 12 to 14 Coulson Way in Canning Vale. The officer's recommendation was 1, in accordance with section 3.58(3) of the Local Government Act 1995, authorises the CEO to provide local public notice of the following, being A, proposed sale of 4,366 square metre portion of lot 92, 12 to 14 Coulson Way, Canning Vale, to Oxbridge Proprietary Limited, Vidon Proprietary Limited, Winala Proprietary Limited, and Acropolis Proprietary Limited, trading as Camco Engineering, for the consideration of $1,200,000 and subject to the special condition outlined in this report, and B, proposed interim release of 3,759 square metres, portion of lot 92 in brackets 12 to 14 Coulson Way in Canning Vale, to Oxbridge Proprietary Limited, Vidon Proprietary Limited, Winala Proprietary Limited, and Acropolis Proprietary Limited, trading as Camco Engineering, for the consideration of $30,000 per annum, pro rata exclusive of GST, until such time that settlement of the proposed sale under Part 1A occurs, and 2, subject to there being no objections received to Parts 1A and 1B, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to undertake all necessary actions and sign all documentation to complete the land transaction and lease. Should objections be received, the matter shall be referred back to the next available ordinary council meeting. 3, authorises the allocation of the proceeds of sale and lease to the Town Planning Scheme number 33, Public Open Space Trust Fund, for specific use towards park improvements and or community benefits within the Canning Vale industrial area. That matter was carried by council. Governance, I'll ask you just to give the count, please, without notice. I'm not sure if that one was unanimous.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I specify which item number?
CC 00421. That was the Coulson Way Canning Vale matter.
Confirm it
Unanimous.
was
The matter
carried
was
unanimously, 10
Carried
in favour.
unanimously. Thank you very much, Governance. The final matter, and I'll ask you again to confirm the count for this one, will be CC 005 of 21, the proposed sale of lot 201 in brackets 1136 Albany Highway, Bentley, being the final item considered as a confidential matter tonight. The officer's recommendation being that Council 1 approves the sale of lot 201 in brackets 1136 close brackets Albany Highway, Bentley, to Arshay Health Limited for the consideration of $2,700,000, and 2 notes that the sale of lot 201 in brackets 1136 Albany Highway, Bentley, to Arshay Health Limited is an exempt disposition of property pursuant to section 3.58 in brackets 5 in brackets D of the Local Government Act 1995 and regulation 30 in brackets 2 in brackets 3 of the Local Government in brackets Functions and General Regulations of 1996. Part 3 authorises the Chief Executive Officer to undertake all necessary actions and sign all documentation to complete the land transaction. Part 4 authorises the allocation of A, $100,000 from the proceeds of sale to the infrastructure reserve specifically for costs associated with the reconfiguration of John Street to facilitate vehicle access to lot 201 in brackets 1136 Albany Highway bracket Bentley, and B, the balance of the proceeds in brackets after deduction of settlement costs close brackets to the Land, Building and Development Reserve, and directs that those funds be specifically designated for the purchase of an income producing asset subject to the approval by a separate resolution of Council. Governance, I'll just get you to give the result for that, please.
Yes, that motion was carried, 9 in favour, with Councillor Barry voting against.
Thank you very much, Governance. That concludes tonight's meeting at item 17, closure. There being no further business, I now declare the meeting closed by my watch at 8:47 p.m. I would like to thank everyone for their attendance.